What is the weirdest Tinder date that you've been on? Went on a date with this cute girl. We talked about an hour and she felt more fascinated when I brought up my cats. She was very eager to meet them, so we proceeded to go to my place. Spent few hours just playing with my cats. She was about to leave, and before she put her shoes on to go, she says to me, "Oh, I forgot something," and went to grab my youngest kitten, during the time 4 months old, and picked him up and wanted to walk out with him. I stopped her and told her what was she doing. To her reply, "I thought you let me adopted him." Like girl. Fop lol. Guy offered me a bag of marijuana at the beginning of the date. Then spent the rest of the evening talking about molecules and energies and how the government is trying to give us cancer because of something in the lights we use. Some weird pseudoscientific stuff. I just nodded along and ate my food. He didn't eat anything because he fasts 23 hours a day. The best part was that the woman at the table next to us could hear our conversation and we exchanged knowing looks, where her eyes said "WTF is up with this guy?" and mine said "I know." He had a bag of weed, but fasted 23 hours a day and wasn't hungry. What? Met a guy on Tinder. We talked for a while on FB before meeting. He decides to come to my work for my lunch break. I was working third shift at the time, so this was at like 3 AM. I hung out in his car in complete silence while he played on his phone. Then he started to show me pictures of real dead bodies on his phone. I hopped out of his car so fast. That was my first and last Tinder date. Showing you real dead bodies on his phone is odd. Showing you real dead bodies on his phone at 3 AM makes me glad you got out safely. I matched with a guy I went to high school with and who I always thought was really good looking and really cool. Played sports, well liked by everyone, etc. I probably hadn't seen him in 2 years at this point, but in his Tinder pictures he still looked the same. So we agreed to meet up for coffee. He comes in with greasy long hair, a beard, and actually looked homeless, and went on to tell me that he dropped out of college and has severe ADHD now. He couldn't focus on one thing and was fidgeting the entire date. Told me how he's now one with the earth, and at the end of it told me he was gay. I'm a girl. I seriously thought I was being punked. As awful as this date sounds, I hope he's doing better now. Guy kept asking me out for weeks and even called me. We had exchanged numbers eventually to convince me, so I decided to give it a try. We decided to meet at a bar. He got there 30 minutes late and ordered a Coke. Apparently, he was a recovering alcoholic. That's not a problem for me. I just thought it was weird that he had agreed to go to a bar, and then he proceeded to perform on me what felt like a job interview. At some point I even sarcastically asked, "Am I doing okay here?" After 40 minutes of that, he got up, paid for his Coke, and said, "I'm gonna go. I have to get up early tomorrow," and left. We haven't talked since. Well, did you get the job? Don't leave us hanging. Sorry to hear there wasn't a second interview. Date was ending. Got in my car after saying bye. Looked over and he had his wiener out and was stroking it. Ah, to be young and in love. That's not a weird Tinder date. That's a Tinder date. The weirdest one was probably going out with this dentist guy. We were in a cafe. He then asked to see my teeth and questioned about my oral hygiene. I have pretty good teeth according to him, but that was weird. Maybe he has a teeth fetish. If I did, I would be a dentist. I had been on a few dates with a guy I met on Tinder, and things seemed to be going really well. We had common interests. He was funny, smart, attractive, and incredibly kind. One evening he invited me over to his house. We had always had public dates beforehand, and I agreed. The night started out great. He cooked dinner, we watched a movie, and things started to lead towards the bedroom. Before we got there, he asked if he could show me his favorite room in the house. Somewhat confused, I agreed. He opened a door beside his bedroom, and we walked into a baby nursery. Not just any nursery, a nursery with an adult-sized crib, changing table, diapers, etc. He told me that he was into baby role-playing and would be very happy if I would agree to be his mommy. I'm a very open-minded person, but that's not something I would be able to do for him, and politely excused myself. He messaged me the next day, asking if I would reconsider, and I once again politely told him that we could no longer see each other. There are no words to describe my expression. Went to a local cafe. Date went well, until she flipped the crazy switch. She started inquiring when we would get an apartment together, as well as have children. Also, how many children we would have. She ended up messaging every day, multiple times a day, wondering why I didn't want to talk to her. I ended up calling her and just telling her it wasn't going to work. She flipped and told me our relationship was built in lies and she was breaking up with me. We went on one date. Sorry for your loss. I'm more sorry for her loss. She lost her boyfriend, husband, and baby daddy all in one phone call. I noticed a cute French girl. In her bio she mentioned there were some tadpoles in a pothole by her house that she wanted to rescue. I never know what to start off with, so I figured this would be a good conversation starter. I ended up bringing a ladle, a spoon with holes in it, and we fished a few out of the pothole, put them in a jar, and brought them to a nearby pond. The rest of this first and last date was super awkward, but hey, at least we rescued some tadpoles. I think rescuing tadpoles from a pothole is my dream first date, to be honest. I picked up this one girl from her house and she fell asleep until we got to the restaurant. It was her way of showing she trusts you. I feel so immediately comfortable around you, I can fall asleep. Also found out she was a cam model later on that evening. Turns out she was just broke and really wanted a free meal. I found out almost instantly when she devoured almost every roll of Red Lobster in like 2 minutes. I called her back. I've heard of people doing this. Apparently you aren't the only one who got this treatment. Oh yeah, for sure. My so's friend would use Tinder dates to get free meals fairly often. About 15 minutes in we were discussing travel and we'd both been to Amsterdam, and then he said this is probably more of a second date conversation, but when I was in Amsterdam 2 hookers blew me while my girlfriend waited in the room. I guess it was raining outside so his GF waited in the room. Agree to meet at her place, just your average Netflix and chill date. I was in my mid-20s and she was early 30s with 1 kid, just gorgeous blue-eyed blonde. She lets me in the front door and there's about a 40-year-old man just sitting in a recliner and her son was just sitting on the couch and they were watching TV. She grabs my hands and takes me down to the basement. Obviously just anxiety to the duck in nines, like what is going on? That is her husband and she can just duck who she wants apparently. So we go at it while her hubs and son watch TV. She was being obnoxiously loud. Great sex but super awkward, especially leaving. Made eye contact with the dude on the way out. He looked just dead in the eyes, like a defeated look. Never went back. Not weirdest but most interesting for sure. Went on a date with a pretty good looking chick off of there. Everything went fine, then she had me over. We went to her room and instead of sex, we started talking about what we do, and she dropped the bomb that she's a cam girl and does porn for some pretty big companies. I specifically remember Naughty America being one of them. We spent the next like hour watching her get blowed and asking her questions about the behind the scenes of porn. So did it turn into an audition for you? I don't know, but if you're asking if sex was had, then yes. It didn't pan out after some time, since I think she moved away to pursue more roles. She was using pics about a year ago. She had awesome text game. Found out she had a form of autism. She was much bigger. She was smoking cigs and was dying of cancer. I tried to be nice for the rest of the night. We went to a pond and looked for frogs and stuff. We saw a beaver. It was great. Not traditional, but perfect for me. This is the cutest shit I've ever seen. Worst date I went on hands down. A guy acted incredibly interested in me and I gave him a shot. Told me he didn't have any money for a date. Fine. We are in college. I get it. Proceeds to show up. I pay for him the whole time. Everything is going great. Asks to see me again. Next day, doesn't even talk to me. Hope the free food was worth it. For the record, I'm female. People who use Tinder for a free meal are the worst, no matter what their gender. It's beyond rude and hurtful. I think I need to read through these stories before a date. It's given me a lot of confidence just knowing that I'll never come close to ducking up a date this bad. About 10 minutes in she karate chopped a child and then spent the rest of the date holding her blouse closed because one of the buttons had come off. 2 years later we're about to buy a house together. I feel a part of this story is missing. Right before the date she asked me if I could pick her up. I told her I don't have a car. I'm from Europe and my city has good public transportation, so no need for a car. During the date she kept mentioning how cool it would be if you had a car and even tried telling me about car sharing services and how I should be using them. She also repeatedly asked me what I thought of her during and after the date. We never met again though. Huh. Wonder why she doesn't use those car sharing services? She has Tinder already. When I was a freshman in college I went on a coffee date with a guy who had lied about his age. He was 10 years older than I thought he was. Turned out he was an English teacher for high school seniors. I was essentially the same age as his students. Gross. Guy came over and literally got naked within 5 minutes of getting in. We had shared some kinky texts, but there was zero lead up to it once he was there. Just a hug at the door. I went to make him a drink in kitchen and turned around and he took off everything including his socks. He then came at me to start kissing me and we did, but I just couldn't get into it and said I needed a drink first. He said he was already late for his babysitter at home, so if I wasn't gonna duck now he'd just have to leave. I said goodbye. 2 out of 3 times this works if HIMYM is correct. The guy asked if I wanted to go back to his hotel room. I said sure, but I'm not sleeping with you. When we get to his room, there's another girl there, and he's expecting me to have a threesome. I noped out so fast